is a 125 gallon hour race pump, right? Alright guys, good morning. So we're finally finishing everything with the F100. We're getting back on this. So this thing's finally back in my life, back in regular scheduled videos. I know you guys are excited about that just as much as I am. And we have it on the Selects just because that's what I felt. But give it that proper look, at least to come back with an engine like this, of this caliber at least. So you can see it's a big mess in here. The wires are a mess. Pretty much everything is a mess. The battery doesn't even fit. It's for a different truck. So I have a lot of maintenance to catch up on. So in this video, hopefully we're gonna get pretty much everything done to where this thing can run and drive on its own and it won't overheat, explode, melt down, do anything stupid. So I already put the exhaust on, so the exhaust is back on. So you can see down there the whole Black Widow setup. This is actually what grenaded the motor last time, is I put this on and then leaned it out. That is all done. It sounds wicked, and it has the correct jetting this time. So go from a big jet 600 to a full 750 on this one, and this is so much better. So, but yeah, I do have an electric water pump, so the first thing on the list is we gotta go ahead and pull the shroud off and get the Derale electric fan set up and put in this thing so it doesn't overheat. And then on the same thing, I'm gonna have to go ahead on the pulley drive and get this alternator figured out, because the bracketry that at least that I opted with was set up for a different water pump, so nothing lines up. So I gotta go and make up a couple of pieces to get it all to fit. But nevertheless, once that's done, catch can set up, and a few more little goodies and some wire tucks, and this thing should be ready to rock and roll. So I do want to take this, try to at least attempt to take it to a car show tomorrow, so we'll see. But I'll see how much I can get done. So a lot to do, so let's get after it. If you guys didn't see, our F100 small block killer t-shirts are actually now restocked on the website. So if you missed it on the last drop, this will be your chance to go grab it. So head down in the description of this video. The link will be there, as well as in the comments section. You can grab yourself a shirt or a sticker. So go grab it for yourself. Alright guys, so keeping up with the theme of getting this thing actually back on the road more than just running and moving around, you might have noticed that this thing never had a fan setup. So when I was just driving this thing around, there was a shroud, but there's obviously no pulley on this Meziere water pump. So that leaves me with one option, and that is electric fans, which is what we have right here. Believe it or not, mechanical fans on the front of the engine, whether it be a just bolt driven or a clutch style, can rob as much as 40 plus horsepower off the crank of the engine. So Engine Masters did an entire video on it. I recommend actually watching it. It does show actually the science and the dyno proof. But realistically, if you think about it, you have a giant parachute on the front of your engine as it's spinning, and the only thing driving that fan is the engine. So you're robbing horsepower more than a power steering, more than air conditioning, more than anything else. So if you can take your mechanical fan and get rid of it, you're not only going to free up horsepower, but you're going to be able to keep your engine cooler, because you can run the fans while the engine's off, and you can pick the times that the fan is running, therefore making the entire system more efficient. And so what we have right here in a box is an entire Derale system that's ready to fit for our radiator. We don't have to modify anything, and they make a full bolt-on shroud and fan setup for a wide varieties of different sizes radiators. So you can see actually on the box here, there's all the part numbers and different sizes. And if you go on their website, they do have a bunch of different ones ready to run. And like in this thing, we have a Champion radiator, which is just a basic 2-core, nothing too fancy, but it's a common size. So what I did was I called up the guys over at Derale, told them what radiator I had, I measured the core width, and they were like, wow, this is a very popular size. And then they sent out this one right here. And so this is a direct fit. It comes with all the bracketry and everything we'll need to put it on. So right here, you can see this is a 4,000 CFM unit, and it's pretty badass because on top of that, when the vehicle's moving, they have these cool little flaps that'll open to direct more airflow through the radiator. And when you're stopped in traffic, these things will go down. And when the flaps are down, it'll actually pull more air through the fan. So it's all around a really good system. On top of that, it comes with a little, like almost weather strip style to actually seal the edge of this thing again. So you're not just putting metal on metal, you're not losing airflow through the cracks of the fans. And overall, you can see how thick this entire setup is gonna be so much better than just a generic little 16-inch or 14-inch fan from O'Reilly's or AutoZone or any sort of unshrouded fan. The biggest, most important thing that a lot of people forget on a shrouded fan setup is you actually do need a shroud. You can't just run a fan, otherwise the air is gonna go around it. You need to funnel the air somewhere. And without a shroud, an efficient shroud at that, you're not gonna get the correct volume of air through the fan. Therefore, no cooling on the radiator, as well as not enough cooling on the engine. So this setup from Derale is gonna work really, really well. And on top of that, we have one of their PWM electric fan controllers, and this thing will completely control the speeds, as well as when the fan's on, and it'll basically do everything for you. It comes in a little powder-coated black box. You can mount nice and tight in the engine, so this looks really good. On top of that, it gives you an entire wiring diagram, but pretty much makes it as simple as you can on how to actually wire this thing. There's a couple different ways we can wire it, and they give all that right here. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get some of the bracketry bolted on this thing. There should be no welding or fabrication. This should pretty much bolt right on. I might have to drill a hole, but I doubt it. And overall, the system should pretty much bolt right on. So we have plenty of room in between these two, so let's get into it. If you guys want to check out Derale for yourself, I'll have a link down in the description. I highly recommend checking it out. We actually ran their trans cooler on the Galaxy, and that thing has never even gotten close to overheating. I've never even been able to get the fan to kick on because it runs so cool. So definitely go check that out, and I want to give a massive thank you to the guys over at Derale for working with me on the F100. Alright guys, we got the radiator fan setup actually bolted in the truck. We also got the fan controller bolted in. Everything looks good. You can see how much room we still have, which is good. You can see on this side, went ahead and just mounted it right here. This will give me a nice area to kind of tie everything in with the rest of the electrical in this thing. So yeah, I'm basically gonna go ahead and take the wiring diagram they give you, pretty much follow it, wire some things in series, wire some things in parallel, and then get everything hooked up properly. You can see we are running a dual fan setup, so it tells you basically how to do everything. And it should be pretty self-explanatory. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing hooked up. You can see, man, this thing looks good inside there. And overall, I think when you're looking at the engine bay and you kind of see all this, it'll definitely look really, really good. So I'm definitely happy with the way this thing looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of this thing hooked up and power them up. Alright guys, so kind of a little update on wiring. I've been spending probably the last 3 hours or so just redoing the wiring in the engine bay, just because while I'm there I move one thing, I move another, and then I just got to the point where I just ripped it all out and started over. So that's kind of where I'm at. So it might still look a little bit the same, but this probably looks a little bit different. So if you look over here, you can see I've pretty much redone everything on this side of the engine bay, along with the PWM box and the headlight, heavy duty headlight harness. There's the two relays right there. What I ended up doing was basically running all the common positives, and then so this setup, I have a video on when I built this, and I'll put the card up as well as in the description below if you want to see how I built this. I built this thing for and it was very cheap. You're probably looking at maybe like 20, 30, 40 bucks here on just like Amazon, basic relays, and I made this whole panel. It's basically a distribution block. So we have a common power 12 volt source here. You have fuse links to power out these relays. So you have 4 on this side that power 4 40 amp relays, and then you have another 5, well I guess you could have 5 here, but basically you have 4 with 40 amp and then 6 with just, I guess, power in, power outs with a fuse, and that's basically what you're looking at here. So what I ended up doing was for the fan wiring, there is a 12 volt switch, so I went ahead and ran it to one of the power out sides, and the one thing I'm realizing is there is a 12 volt switched, I guess, wire that I gotta find, and there's like none in this engine bay, so it's kind of an issue. The only thing I think it's 12 volt key on would be maybe like the temp sender wire or one of the sending units, or like my coil. I don't really want to tap off that kind of stuff because then your gauges all read kind of funky. And you obviously don't want to pull anything off of the ignition system for obvious reasons. But so either way, I'm still liking the way that looks. Looks really good. I got a little wire tech going on over there. And so pretty much you won't see any wiring in this entire engine bay. And mind you, this ignition setup and these wires, this is all ugly. This is crap that I'm not using. The ice stuff is not on here right now because mind you, I have to get another gear for that because I was stupid and ruined it on the dyno. So once that comes in, we'll make brand new perfect loom wires that go all the way where they're supposed to. And the reason these wires look so bad is these were set up for a 302 firing order. I have a 351 firing order now because that's a different camshaft. So a lot of stuff has changed, but the fans look really good. The wiring's getting there. It's all gotten looking pretty good. So I'm just gonna kind of keep chugging along, and I'll catch you guys up once all the wiring is pretty much donezo. All right, story time. So we're here. The car truck still thing doesn't run. So yeah, that's cool. But yeah. So I'm like 18 hours into redoing all the wiring in this thing because I had an issue that prevented me from even going any further, put a hard red stop in everything that I was doing up to this point. To the point to where I was leaving the shop with the battery off the truck to make sure it didn't catch on fire. So in these trucks, if you do not know, they have a factory resistor wire in the ignition circuit. When you turn the tumbler to the accessory position or on position, there is a factory resistor in line that would regulate the voltage from 12 volt down to the 6 volt or whatever for the point system that these things came with. Now, if you're putting any sort of aftermarket ignition system, you do need to change that to a 12 volt circuit. You need to run a new 10 gauge wire, just bypass the whole thing entirely and just get rid of it. Now, I, for whatever reason at the time when I was, 16, 17, 18 years old, doing this and building this truck and putting an aftermarket ignition system in it, past Craig was not nice to future Craig because he didn't know what the hell he was doing, because I found a wire that went 12 volt to the coil and I ran it, and I did not realize that behind all the factory loom that you cannot see is a resistor wire, and I ended up grabbing it. Of all the wires I could have chose to run 12 volt to the coil, I chose that one. And it's been fine for all these years, which is ironic enough. It shouldn't have lasted as long as it did, but basically, for whatever reason, when I was doing all the wiring for the fans and stuff like that, they're on their own relay system entirely. They do nothing more than have 12 volt all the time. Just switches are what's run them. I don't run them key on or anything, so I don't know what triggered this. But for whatever reason, when you turn the key to the on position, that resistor wire was basically lighting itself on fire and having a meltdown. So whatever, I don't know if there's a capacitor or I guess the resistor that's in that wiring harness, finally overloaded, melted down, and then the wires that were attached to it, there's like 4 wires that go into one off of that resistor wire for whatever needs to be resisted in the electrical system on this truck.
It looked nice and
yeah,
factory.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh yeah.
No big deal. Well, they finally melted. So I backtracked. I noticed there was a bunch of smoke coming out from the dash. All the sheathing was starting to melt, and I just put a red flag on everything, stopped everything I was doing. I tore everything apart in the engine bay for the wiring, trying to figure out what the hell I did, because that was the only thing I was doing. Come back to find it was something inside the dash that finally overloaded itself. I mean, this wiring's 50 plus years old, so you can't expect it to work all the time. It is probably that time where I should rip all the wiring out of this truck and put a new painless kit in it, but we're not quite there yet. I just want to drive this damn thing. So I ended up going ahead and just repairing the harness and bypassing everything and running my own set of new 10 gauge wires, 14 gauge wires, 12 gauge wires, for all the necessary power components that this thing needs. So that's what I've been doing. So we've spent 18 hours. I've been here rewiring all the stuff for the engine bay, the power, the ignition, the gauges, basically anything that needs power. I'm making sure it has the adequate power supply. So that is why you're probably not gonna get the driving video that you want, but I am just gonna give you guys an update and show you guys exactly what happened. And if you have an F-Series truck, what to do. Learn from my mistakes. So let's get into it. So I'll make this very, very short and sweet for you guys that don't really care, but and long story short, if you have an F-Series truck, you may be familiar with this plug. Well, this plug is what sits in the engine bay. Right about it comes out where that grommet is, where I put a new one. So that would be sitting right here, and you have 3 wires that come off of this. This is your factory resistor wire that goes inside the cab that regulates it down. I believe this brown wire is the trigger wire for that, or the 12 volt source, I'm not really sure, but this is coil stuff. And then you have water and oil. Those are the 2 gauges. So this entire harness, scrap that, throw it in the trash, because the resistor wire that you get your coil voltage from is not the one you're gonna be using. If you have a blaster coil or anything like this, and mind you, this is not the ignition setup we're gonna be running, but the voltage source is the same. We are gonna be running 12 volts to it. It's not a reverse polarity setup like points or anything weird like that. If you have anything other than points, you need to pay attention, because you need to be not using that source. So that wire that comes in your engine bay, do not use that. That's a fire hazard. It can be a fire hazard, and it was a fire hazard for me. So this wire was getting like hundreds of degrees. You can see how rubbery and floppy it is now because of how many times it got hot inside the harness. You can see the sheathing is all, pre-bent and shaped because it got hot and cold so many times. That is the wire that's in your harness. Get rid of it. It's junk. It doesn't work. And that wire will come off of the back of the key tumbler. You'll see it. It's a bright pink wire, and then it runs to I guess a resistor, capacitor, or whatever it is. I'm not even sure what it is. It's like a little black rubber, I guess, junction, but you can see that melted. That completely has been melted. And then the 4 wires coming off of it, we're gonna have to relocate the power sources. One of them wasn't doing a damn thing for me. One of them went to the horn of all things, and then the other one, I still gotta track it and figure out where the heck it goes. But you can see this thing has so many different junctions. Someone had been in here other than me. Obviously these little butt plugs. Oh, don't put that in. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why these butt connectors and different splices and things are in here, but those are definitely not what's supposed to be in there. So yeah, pretty much what I did is I ran a brand new 10 gauge wire. I'm gonna run that off the back of the key for the accessory or ignition side. Run that straight to the coil so there's nothing in the way, and you should be good. And I get to have the glorious time of cleaning all of this wiring back up, putting my entire dash back together, because you can see it's such a mess. And then what's even more enjoyable is I ended up ripping all of my nice clean, relay cable wiring apart just to diagnose this and find wiring that was problems when the problem was inside the cab the whole time and this had nothing to do with it. So future Craig did a good job. Past Craig, like 16, 17, 18-year-old Craig, he sucked. He did me dirty. And that's the reason we haven't been able to drive this thing. I've been working on this thing actively since Tuesday. It's now Saturday and I still haven't even started it. So yeah, frustration is like yeah, major in my life right now. But you know, it's the way it goes. There's a reason for everything. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be driving it on Saturday. Maybe someone would have crashed into me if I drove it on Saturday. So maybe it's just the world's way of saying, take your damn time and make sure it's done right. So that's why I'm here. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but everything does happen for a reason, even if your projects aren't going your way. I was on a very good schedule with this thing in terms of videos and posting and getting it rolling, but that's nevertheless to say the world will make you do certain things for a very specific reason. So just trust the process, and I'm gonna get it fixed, and we'll keep on trucking.
Come on, Mater, you can run.
All right, let's see if I fixed it.
Sounds like it.
Hey, it works. I did a thing. Wow, that like idled. That didn't even prime it. There's not even a fuel system in this thing right now. Hell yeah, she wants to run. I did something that worked.
No, she just wants the Cosby sauce.
All right, so I think I've clocked in at like maybe 20, literally like 24 labor hours into rewiring this entire thing. It came out bitchin'. I'm super happy with it. So everything's done, everything works for the most part. This is all temporary, so mind you, I'm gonna keep reminding you guys that the ice stuff is not in this, so we're actually gonna be mounting the coil on the back firewall. So all the wiring right here will end up over there. But the engine, and same with the spark plug wires, the wires are very ugly. Don't look at that. So don't mind the ugly engine, but this all came out super, super good. I'm very, very, very proud of this. So I did go ahead and I used Tessa tape, which you can see right there, to go ahead and actually loom this thing. The loom can buckle and look kind of weird and tacky with a bunch of zip ties on it. Tessa tape kind of, you just do a little one and done and that's it. And then this relay panel, you guys are probably wondering, wow, that looks kind of cool. Where'd you make that? I'll put the tag up. I made a video on this probably a year or two ago on when I built this. So I'll show you guys how I built it, all the parts. You're probably looking at maybe 20 bucks right here. So go check out the card, watch this video if you want to build it. It looks badass in the engine bay. So then went ahead and ran all the wires behind it. You can see it's all neat and tidy. And there's a little circuit breaker for the Derale PWM controller, which is right there. That is all wired. Everything looks nice and pretty. Water pump works, fans work, everything works. So the only thing I need to do now is take our new fuel pump and install it. So if you guys recall, one of the reasons I actually broke this engine the first time was because it went lean. So one of the things I was very adamant about is making sure I had adequate fuel pressure and fuel volume to accommodate this engine. So this is a Holley HP 125 gallon per hour fuel pump, and this should be more than enough fuel than this thing will ever need. We also have a bunch of lines and fittings to put inside this thing. So we're gonna be going ahead and changing pretty much everything fuel related in this engine bay. So you can see I have a bunch of like cheap brass fittings and stuff. As well as on the actual carburetor side. And all those are going to be getting changed with black Earl's fittings as well as gold fittings and a bunch of black AN stuff. We are going to be changing all this stuff out with the Holley goodies and Earl's stuffs. For right now, I do want to actually drive this and test it. So I think for right now, I already have everything set up for this pump, or a smaller version of this pump. So all my fittings still work. Everything will work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, get the wires ran, and get this thing bolted on, and actually test fit this thing out so we can drive this thing. Because if I do everything right, tomorrow morning, we will be able to come here, we will be able to drive it. We'll be able to get a little bit of a driving action for you, finally. So I think that's worth pushing the upload back a little bit just to see this thing drive. So I'm gonna get that pump installed and I'll catch you guys back up when we get this thing running. And finally, maybe driving for the first time, not on a trailer, with a water pump and cooling and everything. There's still no alternator, but we don't need that. So yeah, let's see. All right, got that boy in. Check out how quiet this thing is. This is a fuel pump. This is a 125 gallon hour race pump, right? That is like the quiet, like here's the water pump. The water pump's louder. That is insane. My last pump, wah, everyone make fun of me because they're like, oh, your pump's louder than your motor. No, this is, wow, that's really impressive. So, should, they filled the bowls up immediately, which is, I mean, obviously. It works. Hey, cool shirt, bro. Where'd you get it?
Craig 909. That's not like that. But yeah, that's like who you want to be reporting.
What's your guess on that RPM? 5.
Really?
Yeah. It didn't sound too clean. Whatever it wasn't good because he pulled back in. You heard it here first. It didn't sound good. Neither do I.
He stalled it. He doesn't know how to drive manual.
Are we on fire or is it your first time driving a manual?
What's going on?
Is that your starter being stuck?
I think that is.
It's the fucking solenoid in there again. It definitely.
How long has your starter been on?
Probably that whole pole.
Was
It
it
just-
starter on
The
still?
starter was
That's
what that noise was. I was like, there's a really gnarly noise, and I don't know what that is.
Were you lean or rich when you did the pull? Because it didn't sound
I
right.
smoked the starter. Yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you.
Do you not have an AFR gauge?
Dude, I just melted the starter. Look at it, it's on fire over here.
Yeah, that's what the smell was as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where is it?
How did that stay on?
It's it's that solenoid in there.
Well, that's less than ideal.
Less than ideal.
I shut everything off, and I was like, why is it still making noise? The truck's off, fuel pump, water pump, fans are off.
Good call, though.
Yeah, the starter was having a meltdown. Yeah, we almost made it.
We're within pushing distance.
Did it sound cool at least?
It
Sounded pretty cool.
It didn't. It still runs.
Hey, at least you can push it on your own from here.
Yeah, that is true.
It's still a manual. You can still bump start.
It's a win. It works. Yay. Alright, well, either way, it still runs. I got a little bit of work to do, as you can see, but I need to, mentally, I need
Get
to
over
move.
your fear.
I needed to move it. I was like, okay, everything's good enough. I want to go up and down the street, just come back, check it. I'm not doing any crazy flybys. Like, that's half throttle. We're not really laying into it yet. So this
You're
can
a
do a
little
lot
squirrely
more.
on the way back.
Oh, it didn't hook up at all. No. Just a little lay into it, and it just, yeah, these tires when they're cold don't do anything, but.
Wait, put it in gear. See if it
Oh, it's stuck. Pull the battery out.
I got the power. Ah! Okay, I don't got the power.
I bet you it's this again. Put it back on. Yeah, it's that.
Do you have another one?
Yeah,
Wait, you got a remote start now?
I guess.
Wait,
yeah.
no, it's half mil start.
I don't know
Not
how I
half
didn't
mil.
shock
What
the crap out of myself doing that. I just realized what I'm holding.
I'm gonna pull my cap. Just don't hit my car.
You're doing a great job, guys. Why so fast?
There's a cop right there.
Where?
He's so dumb. Oh my! I'm literally pointing like there's a cop right there.
Where?
No, there's a cop right there. Hey, you did that and I just saw it off turn and I'm like, that's how I'm pointing at the cop.
stop. Made that bus.
He said, did you hear him?
Made that bus stop.
Did you hear him? He comes by, he goes, I hear a bad noise.
I wanted to give you guys a driving video, so I hope you guys did go and enjoy this. Leave a like, it would mean a lot to me. This whole thing's so nerve-wracking with the amount of time and energy that's been poured into it. So I really would appreciate it. You go down, grab your small block Ford Killers T that we made. Support this, support the build, support me. I'll see you guys in the next video where we actually get to shoot rollers and drive this thing. So I'll see you guys then. Hey, you guys gonna kiss?
They literally don't even know. So, I mean, I'm telling
Hey, you guys gonna kiss?
Yeah.
if they're not married.
Film it. Oh, yeah.